Welcome, my friends, to the Sage Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, returning to the show is Jordan Maxwell. For more than 50 years, Jordan continues as the preeminent researcher and independent scholar in the field of occult and religious philosophy. He served for 3.5 years as the religion editor of Truth Seeker magazine, America's oldest free thought journal, which was established in 1873. His work exploring the hidden foundations of Western religions and secret societies has captivated the attention of critical thinkers from around the world. He has conducted dozens of interviews, seminars, hosted his own radio shows, appeared on more than 600 radio shows, and has written, produced, and appeared in numerous television shows and documentaries, all devoted to understanding ancient religions and their pervasive influence on the world today. His work on the subject of secret societies and their symbols has fascinated his worldwide audience for decades. For this discussion, Jordan will talk to us about the influence of religion on the societies and cultures of the world, the corporate governance which encapsulates our lives, and finish up with how the Abrahamic religions originated from Hindu mythos. Jordan's website is jordanmaxwellshow.com, and a highly recommended section of his website is Jordan's Research Society, where for a $30 subscription, you will have access to a plethora of Jordan's private research documents. And to kick our conversation off, I asked Jordan to explain how and why religion has been used by leaders and heads of state for thousands of years to rule and govern the masses. And here is what he had to say.
The different religions throughout thousands of years of our human history have been, fighting and killing each other. Remember, as far back as the ancient Hindus and the Babylonians, Sumerians, the Phoenician Canaanites, the Egyptians, Greeks, Roman Empire, all of this ancient history, we know that the kings, the heads of government, the kings of all these different empires that have come and gone, the kings were not only head of the government and the mundane world you live in, but they were also the connectors to God. Julius Caesar, he made himself emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, emperor of Rome, and then after that he made himself God. He proclaimed himself to be a god. And the Senate, who had been taking all that crap off of him all these years, they decided, certain ones among the Senate decided, this guy has flipped. And in order to save the Republic, we got to get rid of this dude. So that's why they killed him on the Senate House steps. So the whole Roman Empire, it wasn't done at night behind the barn. No, it was done on the Senate steps so that all of Rome could see the Senate represents the people. And we don't give a damn about him representing God. He's gone. So anybody else wants to represent themselves as God, just step up and tell us about it. and so we still have the same thing today. We still got the same thing today. We got people who they call presidents who believe in their heart, truly believe, they are sent to represent God on the earth. So whatever they say, that's the way it is. So that was the problem in the founding of this country. If you go back to 1770s, the founding fathers had all kinds of conversations about what they call lex rex or rex lex. Rex in Latin means king, and in Latin lex, like the Lexus car, lex means law. And rex, R-E-X, means king. That's why you have a Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of the dinosaurs. So the question was asked during the 1770s when they were looking at the Constitution, etc., lex rex or rex lex, is the king our law, or is our law going to be our king? Which is in power, the law or the king? And it was decided on this side of the Atlantic, no, we're going to be the law, not the king. He can do his number with everybody in England, but stay out of here. And so the idea was that the law is the king, not the king is law. So what I'm saying is that so many of the religions of the ancient world were headed by the heads of state, and they were holy. I mean, in other words, most of the ancient world operated like Vatican City. The head of Vatican City, he talks to God. Period.
Yeah.
So that's why today we're in the trouble we're in. because it seems to be hardwired into our human systems, into our minds and brains, and into our human system. It seems to be hardwired that we are destined to bow on our knees to princes and kings and the papacy and cardinals and Prince Charles and the Holy Mother and all and you know and the Holy Queen. It seems to be that we humans love to crawl on our knees to our masters, and it seems to be that we're just still doing it. You know, the founding fathers tried to explain to us: stand on your own feet and proclaim your freedom from all of this tyranny in Europe. And it was so revolutionary and such a radical. People died because of that idea.
Right.
And the reason why is because the kings. You need to keep in mind too that the kings in Europe, they already had the well-founded and well-proven concept. The king is law. Period. And I don't care how corrupt he is, and I don't care how much of the mafia is behind him, and all the bankers are behind him. But the bottom line is that it's a big club, and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
And so he represents the club. And so you don't like it, the club will deal with you. And it wasn't until the coming of the concept of a constitutional republic that the idea caught on. Life, liberty, and justice, and freedom and liberty and justice. And you can imagine what the royalty must have thought. Here's a bunch of ragtag airheads over there in this new country, and they are going around talking about they're free, and no man's going to tell them what to do, and they have liberty and can do whatever they want. They're free. If you let this kind of stuff go on, this kind of thing might catch on.
Right.
And if it catches on, they're going to cut our heads off eventually. So you better do something about it now. Make a move now. Like Michael Corleone and the mob in Godfather 1, talking about the drugs. Well, if we don't get into it, we're going to lose what we've got. And one day soon, we're not going to be as strong as we are now, because if you let them do this, there's going to be too much money, and the people doing it, selling the drugs, are going to become too powerful. So you better do something about it now. Figure out what you're going to do and do it. So that's what's been happening, is that the European powers that be, the royalty, have decided that America has gone far enough. It's over. All of this nonsense about freedom and liberty and justice and honesty and integrity, all of that is over. So therefore, today, we are now being attacked, but done in such a way that we should not know where it's coming from or how it's happening. And so there's a whole story there about now where are we as Americans? When you get into the politics of who we are as Americans today and where we've come from and where we are now and what that says about where you're going, that's a very scary subject.
Let me
And
ask you this question, Jordan. You had said that, that the founding fathers brought these principles of sovereignty and freedom and liberty. How long did that last?
how long did that last? Not very. I mean, just a few short years after the Constitution, there were already beginning to look like clouds coming that there were even within the circle, even within the guiding circle of minds. There was all kinds of radical, revolutionary ideas against each other. And then coming in by the 1840s, with the coming of the communist revolutionary Marx and Lenin, and all of that kind of stuff back in 1940s, 48, with the introduction of communism into the world psyche, into the world system. Then eventually that, we had the Civil War in America.
Right.
And after the Civil War, there was no United States of America anymore. We no longer were the United States of America. We're not united. One half the country in the South went to war with the other half in the North. We're not united. So don't say we're United States. We're not united. There's a war, a bloody war. And so In its place, according to in 1871, the United States of America, as it was perceived originally, no longer existed. Well, okay, so if it no longer exists lawfully and legally, well, you've got millions of people here, including blacks, that want to eat and have families. So it was decided, well, since there is no country, by ruling of the Supreme Court, that the United States of America no longer exists, well, what are you going to do about it? Because you got people out there in the streets wanting to eat and live. So they decided to set up what they called a corporation,
Yeah.
a company, and it was a municipal corporation. But it was set up by people who were in power, and so today we're still today no longer are since 1871. There, well, even before at the time of the Civil War, we're no longer a United States. So by 1871, we're no longer Americans.
You had said something that just caught my interest. You had said that the court had ruled that we are no longer a country, and I just wanted to back up a little bit. It sounded like that took place prior to the Act of 1871.
Yeah, I think so. Right around that same time, certain things were happening with the Supreme Court, and you go back in that 1870s, 1868, 18 to 70, and look at the history of what was happening with the Supreme Court and with the idea of the country, the republic. What is it now? Now that the Civil War was over and we're no longer united, now we hate each other, the South and the North. And so ultimately, that's what the end result was, is that the United States of America no longer existed. We've even had Supreme Court judges say similar things. One of them, I remember, made the statement that the country did not survive. The republic did not survive the way it was started. And that's gone. So the bottom line is that today we're no longer actually, in fact, lawfully speaking, Americans. Today we are U.S. citizens, not Americans, because before 1871 there was no U.S. citizen. We were all citizens of whatever state you were born.
Right.
You know. But now, after 1871, we've got a corporation like General Electric and General Motors or Ford Motor Company. It's just a company. Well, according to the law, all corporations must, corporate law, all corporations must have a president. So we got a president. And corporate law says all corporations must have a vice president and a secretary of treasurer. That's the law. So, okay, so we got a vice president, secretary treasurer of the company, the corporation. And so that's why the Marines are called the Marine Corps. It's corps. It's a company. It's a corporation. They even say it. Marines even say that. They even call the divisions within the military companies. Company A, Company B. We are nothing more now than a corporation. And people don't realize that. They think Obama is the incarnation of Jehovah. The incarnation of Yahweh Jehovah, who is God over all things. No, he's just the president of a privately owned company.
Yeah.
That's all. So you go on out and do whatever you think you're doing, but the bottom line, he's not the president of America because there is no America. He's president of a corporation that's been put in the place of America. It's a privately owned company. It's a corporation, a municipal corporation. I've got 2 or 3 videos I pulled off of the web that some senators and congressmen were being questioned about something in Washington. There's 3 or 4 of them all standing out there, and they're being questioned by the news people. And one of the senators or congressmen says, they ask him about Obama doing this, Obama doing that, and he said, "Look at the United States is a corporation. It's a company.
Right.
You need to understand that the way a corporation works." So I thought that's very clever to have them say that in public in front of everyone.
I think that was Alan West that made that comment.
Yeah,
that
I
he
think
was the
so.
CEO of a corporation.
Yeah, and he said he's just a CEO of a corporation.
Yeah.
Just a company. It's like Rocketdyne or Baskin Robbins or Sears or General Electric. It's just a company, just a corporation. You got to have a president, so he's the president. He's not the god of the universe. He's just the head of a corporation. And incidentally, understanding that, you then understand that's why he does not need to show his birth certificate.
Exactly.
Why? Because he's not the president of the United States. He's the president of a corporation. Well, hell, in Los Angeles, you must have at least 500,000 people who have corporations in Los Angeles. And three-quarters of them have come from other countries. They're Japanese in LA, they've got corporations. And so you don't have to be born in America to have your corporation, as long as you pay your lawyer and pay your taxes and get your corporation papers done, and do what the corporate law says, and then you can have a corporation. You don't need to show your birth certificate. You need to show your birth certificate if you're the president of the United States. But in 1871, the United States of America is gone.
Right.
We got a new deal. It's called a New World Order. Back in 1871, they started talking about the New World, the New Order. From here on out, the people who have the power rule, and your country is gone. And that's why today you cannot go into any court in America at any levels, county, state, federal. You cannot go into any court and discuss in court your rights, your constitutional rights. You don't have any constitutional rights, period. End of sentence. And they will tell you that. Judges will tell you, open your mouth about constitutional rights one more time, and I'm going to show you what your rights are. You're going to prison.
Yeah, they'll hold you in contempt of court.
Yeah, contempt of court.
Yep.
And I was listening to one guy that was he was saying that as a U.S. citizen, he went to a courthouse and wanted to talk with somebody about something, and they didn't want to talk to him, and he was insistent that they do need to talk to him. He's a U.S. citizen, and he's in a courthouse, and he has a right, and they threw him out. They physically walked him out, and they said the reason why they did it is because he was trespassing on private property. And he said, I'm a U.S. citizen. They said, that's exactly right. And this property is owned privately. This is a private property. You call it the courthouse. No. Your government has nothing to do with this. This is a private property. I don't know what that tells you.
Well, it tells you that it's a corporation running the whole kit and caboodle, right?
Well, then what do we call that kind of government? We call that fascism.
Right.
Fascism is when your government is a corporation.
Yeah.
And now it's like the mafia. It's just business. We own you. We own your children. We own you. But most people don't realize that. They think they're living in the United States of America, land of the free, home of the brave. Like Dick Gregory said, you ain't free or brave.
Yeah.
You better keep your mouth shut. You're going to prison.
Why do they have to masquerade around this, Jordan? In other words, why masquerade that it's a country and there's a constitution? Why don't they just come out and say, look, you know what? That was yesterday, a long time ago. It's a corporation. Right. Why don't they do that? Right. Why do they masquerade?
Because as long as the people believe that they have the freedom to decide anything they want, they are in charge. They will be happy to just drink their beer and go out to the ball game and live their life and buy their boat. They'll go in the military and serve in the military, and they'll do whatever they got to do because they belong to a country that has freedom. They can do whatever they want and think whatever they want. And so, but if you come out and tell them, can you imagine Obama coming out and telling the truth? Once in his life telling the people the truth. Look at, I own you. I own your children. I own the land. I represent the people who own the land you live on.
Yep.
And this is the feudal systems. And that means if I own the land, that means I own the plants on the land, the trees. I own the water rights. And if you're living here on the land, I own you. And that's the way it is. Now, if you want to get nasty about it, then we'll just throw you in prison. And if you're really smart, highly intelligent, if you figure this how this works, then we will kill you. We don't want the people realizing they are no longer free. I think the whole idea of America being free and having liberty and freedom and and all that, that's gone. It's over. It's been gone since 1871. But when you come out and tell people the truth, that might possibly be just enough over the edge to push the people who are awake to do something. And so that's why it's much better to let people think whatever they want, as long as they don't know what they're doing, that's fine. And incidentally, that's why we have freedom of speech in America. That's why we have the freedom to go on the radio, television, write articles in magazines, etc. We have freedom of speech. Why? Very simple. Because as long as you don't know anything and you can't prove nothing, then talk. They don't care.
Yeah.
Government doesn't care if you talk. Go out and rant and rave, and the Ku Klux Klan will rant and rave at you, and the blacks will come in and rave at them, and the communists will come in and rant and rave at the Nazis, and the Nazis will rant and rave at the blacks. And so back and forth, back and forth. We don't care. It's freedom of speech. Unless you happen to be like that young man who worked for the NSA, who unfortunately made a little minor error in his life and told people what the NSA was really doing.
Edward Snowden?
Edward Snowden. Now that's different. That's different. Not the same.
Yeah.
Because this kid knows what he's talking about, and he's heading for prison. You go out and tell the world what we're really doing, and you are heading for trouble. So you can go on out and talk all you want about all the subjects that you don't know nothing about, but if you know something that's real, you better keep your mouth shut. And the military has taken oaths. They take and swear an oath that they will never reveal this or that. And if you do, you're going to prison. You'll lose your pension. You'll do this. We'll throw you in prison. Unless, of course, you're really important to know something you're not supposed to know. You just have to go. We've got to whack you.
Yeah.
Your wheels will fall off your car on the highway, and you and your family are dead. That's the way it works in America. That's the way it works in America. So that's what I'm saying, that once you understand how the world really works, how the judges, how the courts, how the law, the police department, the fire department, once you understand how religions, government, churches, educational institutions, universities, banks, once you understand it's a system, and the system is very, very old, very well established before your grandmother was born, as far back as the 1880s, the system was put into place. And so it's an extraordinary story of betrayal, high crimes and treason against the Republic, but there's not much you can do about it now, because today it's the only game in town. You don't want to be a U.S. citizen? Okay, then you're out.
Yeah.
And if you're out, nobody's going to give you a job. Nobody's going to talk to you. Everybody's going to see you as a terrorist. They might even kill you. If you talk like you've got an education, your neighbors will report you to the Homeland Security.
Yeah.
And so at one time, Americans were proud to be knowledgeable and the leaders of the world. Today, you get thrown into prison for it. So it's a hell of a story.
It's a total mess today, Jordan.
It is.
It's a total mess. And, you mentioned a feudal system before. And when I talk to folks about this topic, I say, look, if you don't believe that feudal system's in place, take a look at something as simple as your property tax. Essentially, you never own your land. You're renting your land.
Of course you are.
You're renting it. But people, they don't connect the dots.
Nope. And that's why, and the same thing with your car.
Yep.
If you own your car, you went in there and paid cash for it, and you drive off and you own it, sorry, you don't own anything. Why? Because you've got a license on the back end of the car. Yeah. And every year you have to get a registration, and it's a little tag with, that you have to peel off the back and put it on the tag to show that you have paid for this year. Right?
Yep.
Well, what you don't know is the way the law reads. This is the law. Any vehicle, I don't care if it's a tank or a bicycle, it doesn't matter. If it's got wheels and it's a vehicle of any kind, the law says if it has on the body of that vehicle anywhere that says for official use only, then that means that the government owns it. That's why when you see our fire engine, on the back end of fire engines, you'll see a sticker that says for official use only. Police departments have for official use only. All state agencies from, the different kind of state agencies, they drive cars and motorcycles, etc., and have a sticker on this that says for official use only. That means it's government property. Well, when you peel off the sticker to stick it on your car, rather than sticking it on the car, before you do that, why don't you read it? Just for the hell of it, why don't you read what you're sticking on your car, and it tells you in plain English on that sticker that you're putting on your car, for official use only. So now, when you put that sticker on that you paid $80 to $100 for each year, that car it had on it already for official use only. So from the moment you bought the car, it has for official use only, meaning that the government owns the car. You have, like property, you have equitable interest. You have an equitable interest, meaning you put up the $10,000 to buy the car. So you have $10,000 of interest in that car. Okay, so if you sell the car, I've got to give you something for your interest that's in the car. But you don't own it. You merely have an equitable interest in it. Now, if you really wanted to own it, that means nobody can charge you nothing. Nobody, you don't need a license or a registration. You must pay each year. Therefore, if you wanted to buy a piece of property or a car or a motorcycle, a plane, or anything else, you wanted to own it, that's different. That word is called allodial. A-L-L-O-D-I-A-L, allodial.
Right.
So when you go in to buy a new car or to buy something, buy a piece of property or a new car, tell the people you're dealing with, the bank or whoever you're dealing with, if I buy this car, I want to buy it allodial. And they know what you're talking about. They just didn't think you were smart enough to know about it.
So what
And then,
happens, Jordan, when you
well,
do that? What happens? What changes?
I was there. I was there in Las Vegas. A friend bought a new car, and I went with him. I was standing right there when he was talking to the sales manager, and he said, "Okay, I've got the cash in my pocket. I have enough cash in my pocket to buy this brand new car off the showroom floor. If you're interested in cash." And he said, "We'll do this deal right now. Absolutely. Anybody that's walks in with that kind of cash to buy a new car, you got it." And then he said, the guy I was with, he said, "But I want to buy it allodial. I want an allodial title." And the sales manager said, "That's fine. Come with me. That's a different contract." And he went in the back and brought out a different contract, and on the top of it said allodial title.
Wow.
And so I sat right there and watched the sales manager go get an allodial contract, not a regular bank contract. So I know it exists. And I know I sat there and watched him peel out the money, and they signed the papers and they give him the car, and that's it. He didn't need a license. And they were going to, the people were cleaning the car and pulling it off the showroom floor, and the sales manager told him, "Well, that's it. You don't need a license on it. It's yours. You own it. Allodial."
So no inspections, no registration,
No
none of that
inspection,
stuff.
nothing. Zero. Nothing. And the law provides that. If he gets pulled over, he just shows the paperwork on the car. It's allodial, and they say, "Okay, just drive careful. Thank you." Why? Because he owns it allodially.
Yeah.
And so, but most people never heard of allodial. They think that's maybe some baseball team or something. No. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm just amazed at how much people don't know about the government and about anything. I mean, here in America, we are very good at knowing the price of everything, but the value of nothing. And
Yeah.
so I look at the way we live in America and ultimately around the world, but I'm more concerned about my own place where I live. But around the world, people do not question anything. They don't know. They don't ask any questions. They're not about to stand up. I've been looking at this stuff for some 55 years, mostly religion and theology, The whole idea of occult, the word occult simply means hidden.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean evil, a devil, or dark like that. The word occult is a Latin word. It means hidden. Well, my God. I mean, there's so many things. My mother hid things from me I didn't know. And my dad never told me all kinds of things that he didn't want me to know. So it was a cult. And if you're walking down the street and you put your hand in your pocket, then your hand is by definition hidden.
Right.
And it's occult. So I've always been interested in the world of the occult, or that which is hidden. Well, let's start with religion. A lot of that's been hidden. And, well, what about government? Well, that's been hidden. Well, how about banking? Oh, we've really hidden that one.
Yeah.
And so then you find out, like George Carlin said, the people who run this planet, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
That's right.
And therefore, they run it the way they want because basically you have said by your actions, actions speak louder than words. By your actions, you have acquiesced to their tyranny. You have said, whatever you have me to do, I will do. Well, you have to do this, and you got to pay that, and you got to do this, and got to sign that. Okay, I'll do it. You know, if you were an American, you'd say, the hell with you. That's why the cowboys, back in the old Wild West days, the John Wayne cowboy movies, all the cowboys wore guns. Go out and ask one of those cowboys riding into town. There's 10 of them. And they're looking for, they hit the bar and drink. And you go in there and tell them, look, in order for you to carry guns, you got to have a permit. They'll give you a permit. I'll hear the back. Let's walk outside and talk about it, son.
Yeah.
I gotta cower to you, and I gotta come to you and get permission. Good. Let's go outside and talk about it. And get on the street. And you better be armed. You telling me what I gotta do? I got a 44 Magnum here that tells me I don't need to hear you. I carry a gun because I'm a sovereign. And I have a right to decide for myself what I want. And that you can't really bypass that. It's in all the old cowboy movies. How come the cowboys could ride into town with guns, and today you got to have permission?
Yep.
So that's why today our government, the government, the U.S. government, the privately owned company, wants guns out of people's hands. Why? Because you don't want to rape a country and rape a people and throw them into prisons and do what the church did to the people during the Middle Ages and what the communists did and all the other fascists and bloodletting murderers who run countries into the ground. You don't want them doing it here. In the North American continent is the largest standing army on the earth that's armed. So how would you like to go out and call yourself God in front of everyone, and that you are the emperor of the world, and everybody should cower to you, and you want to see everyone on their knees when you walk in? Well, if you're in a country of highly individualistic people who are who respect their freedom, their liberty, and their laws, and they carry guns, don't come in here telling people what they gotta do. They've got guns, so they don't gotta do nothing. And if it ever comes to push and shove, you got a lot of guys in this country who like their freedom, and they've got guns to prove it.
This is why they constantly try to capitalize on these shootings that take place, like
That's
San
right.
Bernardino. They
Right.
hop on that. They just jump right on it.
And if I'm allowed to have my own opinion, just my opinion, I think they set those things up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they orchestrate them and engineer
I
them.
think they orchestrate them. They have make sure they got all the news people ready. Be
Right.
there at 6 o'clock in the morning and sign in over here, and get your cameras ready, and it's all orchestrated. And then they can turn around and see, well, there it is, there it is. That's what happens when you have guns. So all of you ignorant dingbats, turn in all your guns. And when you do, and we're sure that we've got all the guns, that God help you and your family. God help you. Because the king has decided he's had enough of your BS.
You know, my concern, Jordan, is that so many people, you mentioned people that respect freedom and they would fight back. What I see today in society is so many people do not respect their freedom.
No. As a matter of fact, they can't spell the word. They don't
Right.
know what freedom is. They've got their freedom. Like George Carlin said, you got plenty of freedom. You can get chocolate ice cream or vanilla, strawberry. You can go see the Dodgers or the Red Sox. You can go wherever you want and do anything you want. You got freedom. You got plenty of freedom. You can have a hamburger on rye or a hamburger and so you got plenty of freedom to make choices all you want. My God, you got nothing but freedom to every television show. You got 500 television stations. They're all full of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and BS. But you got the freedom to look at whatever you want and do whatever you want, as long as you understand that we own you.
Yeah.
And so if you get enough Americans from the old school who know what's going on, it's all the young people who don't know from nothing. They don't know because they're born into it. And that's why the communists said on the Lenin, don't worry about the old people. They'll die anyway. They'll be gone soon. Don't even bother with them. Get the children. Get the young children. Get the young people. And get them in schools and colleges and begin to propagandize them about how, it's very dangerous to have guns. It's very dangerous to do this and that. And your government's protecting you and all that and then you find out, in the movie Godfather, the third one in the series.
Yes.
At the very end of the movie, Godfather 3, at the very end of the movie, he's sitting out on the patio with his sister, and he's taking a shot, remember, and he's sitting there with his sister, and he says, when I was a young child, I always thought that the higher you rise in this world, the higher you go, the more straight and honest and upright it has to be. The higher up in government, it has to be lawful and done right. And he said, now I look back on my life and realize it was just the opposite. That the higher up you go in life, it's all organized crime.
Yep.
Period. But at least it's organized.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I see it today. We have gangs, and the gangs always have a gang leader. And how did he get to be the leader? Because in the whole gang, there's one guy who is really bad news, and you don't want to mess with him. So we just make him head of the gang, because nobody's going to mess with him. So he becomes the head of the gang. So therefore, the idea being is that if you are really ruthless, with no care about human life whatsoever, and you are hell-bent on being the boss of all bosses, like Al Capone, if that's what you're like, and if you're big enough and built for it to shove your weight around like that, everybody will follow you.
Right.
Everybody will. Nobody's going to bother with you. Nobody, unless of course, like when it gets to the top, it gets to the top in the world, like government. Well, then maybe a bunch of guys will decide they've had enough of you, and they're tired because they want to sit in the big man's chair. They want to be the boss. But everybody has agreed, my enemies, my friends, my enemies of my enemy are my friends. So maybe a bunch of guys get together in Congress and decide we've had enough of this jerk, this guy who calls himself Jehovah and walks around like he owns the earth. So we're going to plan something for this guy, get rid of him. So that happens all the time. It's called conspiracies. And my God, the world has been filled with conspiracies because of the love of power. That's really very, very strong. That has to do with sex. That has to do with sex. Power does. The Jesuit priest that was the personal advisor to President Nixon, he said in one of his interviews, this advisor, they asked him, why is it Nixon just will not give up? He just keeps fighting. They ask him to leave, and they threaten him, but he's not leaving. And he said, because you don't understand, power is like sex. Once you get too far gone into it, it has to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so it's like a sexual act. It's got to be fulfilled. And so that's why he's not going anywhere. You want him out, you better come get him, because he's not leaving. No, thank you. Nobody's going to leave that sweet pleasure of being God, being the most important man on the planet that everybody crawls around and stumbles all over themselves to kiss your feet. No, thank you. Anybody who's in that position, you're not going to ask them to leave.
Yeah.
You can get rid of them. We call that assassination, but they're not leaving.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I don't know if you saw the I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched bits and pieces of it, but Obama and the State of the Union, and
I didn't know we have one.
and it was just amazing to me. He gets up there. He's in his second term, nothing but just utter corruption
Yeah,
from day one, and they give him standing ovations. I guess the point I'm making, Jordan, is going back to your point. It's this love of power, and it's a corporation. He's the president of the corporation, and not going to
yeah,
throw him overboard, right?
that's right.
It's
You
all
can't.
it's
He's the
all
president.
yeah, it's all theater. It's all that masquerade that goes on, and it is that power thing. And you were talking about thinking he's Jehovah, and how many times have we seen imagery where he has
The halo.
the halo and the
But it's
yeah,
not just him. George Bush thought he was the incarnation of the Lord Jesus Christ. And anything he did and said, that's the law.
yeah,
He is the reproduction, incarnation of the Almighty Holy God of the Bible. Period. You don't like that? You're going to prison. It's the same thing that they had in the Roman Empire. Caesar proclaimed himself God, and you don't like that? You got some problems with that? Well, that's the same thing that happened in Egypt. The pharaohs declared themselves actual incarnations of God. And if you don't like that, then speak up. Tell us what you don't like about that. Give us an address where you are, and we'll make an example out of you. Here are people that did not believe Pharaoh was God. They're hanging upside down with their throats cut.
right.
So that's the way it works. We call it politics, and and we don't have laws. I mean, it's really extraordinary how all of this stuff works. We don't have laws. We have policies. See, a corporation like General Electric, for instance, or the United States government is a corporation, a company. Well, companies do not have the clout to declare a law. General Motors cannot declare a law that all mankind must abide by, but they do have certain policies. And so their policy is that you have to be to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you take off for lunch, and you go home at a certain time, and you do certain things during the day, and you fill out this order, and you do this and that. And you don't like that, well, that's okay, but it's our policy. And so therefore we don't have lawmakers anymore, they're policy makers. And so when they make policy, who makes the policy? Well, politicians make policy. And it's backed up with the muscle, which is police.
Yeah.
Police back up the policy of the politicians of the corporation. And so, that's why, and then of course, when you find out your body, you are a corporation according to their law. According to their law, you personally, your children, your wife, every individual human creature is a corporation. That's the way it is now, not the way it was founded in 1776, but the way it works now. You are a corporation. And that's why when you die on your tombstone, we say you're a corpse because you were in business. You're out of business now. You're a defunct corporation. Yeah, you're out of business. And so, if you're a corporation, you're a company. And so if I see you with a woman one night and I tell you the next day, look at, that woman I saw you with last night, she's really bad company. And you say, mind your own business.
Right.
Then I find out you're going to get married. She's going to be your partner. Partner, business,
Marriage license.
marriage license. Yeah, all of a sudden it's business. Yeah, well, that's your business. That's not my business. So I tell you to stay out of my business. Whoever I'm dating, that's my problem, not yours, right?
Yeah.
And so, but then it's business. And so that's why you would say, mind your own business. It's because our very existence is now rendered a corporation by law. You are nothing more than a corporation. And because of that, you have to abide by corporate law. So it's very interesting the way it all works. And I mean, we could talk about this stuff for days. There's just so much out there.
No, I know. But the question I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people don't get this either. They're running around and they're ranting about the fact that nobody is adhering to the Constitution. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how that
Yeah,
plays into admiralty law and the contracts and the fact that we're talking about that people are corporations and they have strawmen.
yeah. Well, bring me back to that in just a minute, but it just passed my mind to give people an example of how simple this stuff really is that you didn't see. You look with your eyes, like the scripture says, they look with their eyes, but they don't see. They listen with their ears, but they don't hear. And with the heart, they don't get the sense of it. A classic example, looking with your eyes and not seeing, is as an example, suppose you are a painting contractor and I ask you to paint my office. You come in and give me, this is the way it's done in commerce. You come in and give me a estimate, and the estimate is $100 to paint my room. Okay, I agree. You do the job. When you're through, the way business works, we had a contract and you did the job. And so you come to me at the end of the job and you hand me a bill and you're expecting me to pay it. And so when you hand me the bill is for $100. So I reach in my pocket and I pull out a $100 bill and I give it to you. Now you've been paid and you're happy. You go away and you get a $100 bill. No, it's a $100 bill. You owe me $100. It's a bank note.
Right.
And now you owe me $100. You give me a bill for 100? The hell with you. I'll give you a bill for 100. Now you owe me. Now since you owe me and I owe you and it's the same amount, then we call it even. So I didn't pay you. I neutralized the debt. I didn't pay the bill. I neutralized it by giving you a bill. So if you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. Now, how many people have ever thought of it that way?
Not many.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things that are going on in government, commerce, and banking. Why do you have money in a bank? Where do you get the word bank? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? Well, it directs the flow of the currency because it's the current that's blowing. Yeah, it's liquid asset.
Yep.
It's the cash flow. Well, money goes through your hands like water. No, money is water, airhead. And so it's all business. It's all smoke and mirrors, all deception, lies, words, terms, symbols, flags, coats of arms, harlotry. The whole world system is one system. One, how did they say it back 26 years ago with the movie Network when Ned Beatty was talking to the newsman at the network? Remember that?
Yep.
Oh, that was an incredible scene where he said, what do the Russians do when they get up in the morning? They're not worrying about America. They're worrying about money. They got people to feed. They got military to feed. The whole world is a business, Mr. Beale. Pounds, rubles, shekels, dollars, petrodollars. It's just a business. And that's why if your son is marrying a very rich girl, we say, well, she's of good stock. What is he marrying, a cow? No. So, she's of good stock, meaning her stock on the stock market, her body is worth a lot of money because she's wealthy. Your body is on the New York Stock Exchange too.
Right. So the birth certificates are traded, Jordan, on the stock market?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, no doubt about it. But what I like is something even funnier, and even I entertain myself with all kinds of lunacy. Did you know that the major religions of the world are on the stock market? Islam is a privately owned company. It's a privately owned company. It's a corporation called Ishmael Incorporated. It's Ishmael, and it's the company called Islam. Islam is a company. It's a corporation. It's on the stock market. It's a corporation sold in England. It's all part of the stock and banking in the city of London. It's a company.
Yeah.
It's a corporation. Well, so is the Vatican. The Vatican is a corporation. It's a company. So is the Bank of America. And then when you begin looking at the words and the terms and Judaism, that's a corporation. It's a company. And Judaism does not go back to BC. There was no BC Judaism, period. That's part of the stories. That's why the Bible is called the greatest story ever told. I used to get the hell beat out of me for telling stories, as a kid. You're not going to go out telling stories like that. Well, so the Bible is called the greatest story ever told. It is the greatest story ever told. None of it's true. Even today in Israel, the best archaeologists and paleontologists and researchers and the educated of academia in Israel are all writing articles about there was no King David, no King
Right.
Solomon.
Right.
There was no Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Come on, get a job. There was no Moses. None of that stuff ever existed, period. Now when I get into religion, I could go for the next 8 hours. I mean, I don't even know where to start in religion because I've got so much, it just blows my mind. But talk about Abraham. All three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, are called Abrahamic religions. There was no Abraham. Abraham never existed. There was no such a man named Abraham. And he did not have a wife named Sarah. But if you do some research, which most people don't have time to because the football comes on at 8 o'clock, we don't have time to do any of that silly nonsense like reading a book and studying. That's for screwballs like Jordan Maxwell, who spent 75 years in libraries reading. And so when you find out that Abraham actually, all three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, come directly from India. India is the mother of all three world religions today. Hindus. You better go back and look at the Hindu religion because they're the ones who gave birth to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All three are based on Hinduism. And then when you see that, oh, okay, now what is the Hindu religion? Well, they have an idea expressed in the Hindu religion, ancient Hindu, where their priesthood in that ancient religion were very, very holy men. You didn't question them. You don't talk to them. You are unclean. You don't even get around these people. They are very holy. Like in Israel, they are very holy people. Reason why is because all the stories coming out of Israel are holy. They're full of holes. And so when you and so when you look at Abraham, no, it's Brahmin, the Brahmin priesthood, and the Brahmins were considered the connection to God for the Hindu people. If you were a Brahmin, you were somebody. You represented God. Therefore, whatever you said, that's God's word. You don't think so? Challenge a Brahmin and see what happens to you. And so the Brahmins were the worshipers of the true God, and they laid down the law, what the law was about God. If you don't like that, you go get an ass whooping. And so therefore they had a goddess that the Brahmins loved. That goddess was called Saraswati. And so you have, putting A in front of Brahmin, it becomes Abram. Well, that's what the Bible says Abraham's name was before he left the Babylonian Empire.
Right.
His name was Abram. Yeah, well, put a A in front of Brahmin, it becomes Abram, a Brahmin. And therefore his wife, the goddess of the Brahmins, was Saraswati. So now you've got Abram and Sarah. Saraswati, Abraham. There was no Abraham. It never existed. There was a Brahmin religion. And therefore, that means that if there was no Abraham, then that means that there are three major religions on the earth that are laughable. No Abraham.
I knew you were going there.
Well, yeah, but it's true. I mean, it's like saying. I mean, we could. When you get me on theology, I could talk for all night. That's like saying somebody's anti-Semitic.
Right.
Well, first of all, there is in fact nothing called Semitic. There is no Semitic people in the world at all, period. Now, you can say there is and put that in the book. I don't care. But my point is, in point of fact, there is no Semitic people on the earth, period. And if that is true, which I can prove it, and if that is true, that there's no Semitic, then that means you cannot be anti-Semitic, because there ain't no Semitic.
Yeah.
So how are you going to be anti something that don't even exist? And how do I know that there's no Semitic? Because the very word Semitic comes from one of the sons of Noah. And Noah and his ark. Remember the Noah and the ark? And there were 3 sons and 3 daughters.
Yep.
And there was only 8 people that saved alive on the ark. Well, one of the sons was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And so the offspring of Shem over the thousands of years became Shemitic. But in Anglo-Saxon, we say Semitic. No, it's Shemitic. But if there was no Noah and no ark, and he didn't have 3 sons, and it's a wonderful story, the Bible is the greatest story ever told. Yeah, it's a story. And then you find out, no, there was no Noah. There was no Noah. Yeah, there may have been great floods. I mean, sure, that we know. Where did we get the oceans if it wasn't a great floods? And, the sun draws the water and it rains and it becomes a flood and the water moves around the earth. So I'm not saying there wasn't a great flood. I'm just saying there was no Noah and he didn't have an ark. Therefore, if there's no Noah, then there was no Shem. So therefore, there's no Shemetics. So therefore, there is nothing. It's ludicrous in front of anybody, if you're educated, to say that somebody is anti-Semitic when there ain't no Semitic. It's based on Shem, and Shem was just a story. It's just an extraordinary situation that has arisen in the world, which basically boils down to this. All the problems in the world, and this is a flat statement, all the problems in the world, from my viewpoint, is based on one simple problem: ignorance, education. When you're not educated and don't know the facts, you go off and believe all kinds of stuff. You end up in jail or shooting somebody, or your kids are on drugs, and there's alcoholism everywhere, and the country's falling apart. Why? Because the whole human race realizes in their psyche, they realize everything they believe is a lie. I mean, I think what Rodney Dangerfield is funny the way he said it. Rodney Dangerfield says, faith. What is faith? And he said, faith is that wonderful quality that allows you to believe something you know is bullshit. But so I'm saying the same thing. We have faith, but there's another kind of belief system called Gnosticism. Gnosticism is a faith also, but it comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means to know. That's why if you're a Christian or you're going to a Christian church, they go to a new church and they'll ask you, well, how long have you been a believer? Are you a believer? Why do you call Christians believers? Well, it's because they don't know.
You're
So
right.
they just believe. Well, I would prefer to know. I'd like to go back to school and get an education, learn how to read, and figure out what history is, because if you don't know what history is, then you're bound to repeat it. You'll be just as ignorant as the days are long, and so it's really extraordinary how much the human race does not know. Period. Now, when you talk like this, like I am, the Apostle Paul said, I think it's in the book of Corinthians, "Have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth?" And that's exactly right. You've got Barabbas and Jesus. And the story is that the Pontius Pilate, or the governor, takes the 2 prisoners, Jesus and Barabbas, and goes out before the people of the city. Everybody's there, and he says, according to your tradition, I can release 1 prisoner each year. So which one do you want? On the left, we have Barabbas, and then we have Jesus. On the right, he's referred to as the truth and the light. Which one do you want? And it says, with one voice, everyone in the city said, give us Barabbas, which means symbolically, they're not interested in the truth and the light.
Right.
That's bad for business, Aaron. We don't want no truth and light. We want Barabbas because he's just like us. We can buy him off. He can be bought off as a criminal, and so he won't jump on me for being a criminal because he's a criminal.
Yeah.
So give us Barabbas. We don't want no Jesus with no truth and light. Hell, we'll nail him to a cross, nail him to a stake, and watch him die. So anyway, we could talk about these things. I'd love to do more shows with you where we could talk about theology and religion and
Oh,
the
absolutely.
real stuff. Yeah, I love it. I love doing this.
Your research, did Jesus exist?
No. I believe that Jesus is a metaphor, which is a symbolic story filled with symbols, symbolic metaphor. And you need to understand that. But instead of jumping on me for that, let's do another show just on that subject of the metaphor of the New Testament story. It's an incredible story. It's a metaphor. It's an encoded, you hear all the stuff about Bible codes and this Bible code and that Bible. Yeah, that's true. There are codes. But the biggest one, you just stumbled over and didn't even see it. That the entire New Testament is a metaphor.
Yeah.
It's a symbolic story that you don't get. You look with your eyes, but you didn't see. You listen with your ears, but you didn't hear. And with the heart, you don't get the sense of it. And that's why today you've got Christians killing Christians all over the world, Muslims killing Jews, Jews killing Muslims, people all over the world killing themselves a religion, which is by their fruits. You shall know them. All of this activity and all this terrible stuff going on tells me that nobody of the three major religions knows what they're doing. All they're doing is saying everybody else is full of bull, and we've got the whole truth. By their fruits you shall know them. The fruitage of all three major religions that come from India is bloodshed, violence, drug addiction, alcoholism, wars, violence, rape, plunder, and stupidity. That's the fruitage of the three major religions. I want to get into all this stuff. I'd love to get into the real story behind Jesus, where it really came from, and what it actually means. But that's going to take a couple, 3 shows to do that.
Well,
if you are open-minded and want to hear it.
No, absolutely. And I've done a lot of research myself in that area. I would be happy to have those shows with you and go through that, because I think that's very important. Now, I also wanted to say that in your work and in your presentations in the past, you have said to the audience that what's contained in the Bible is very important.
Extremely. Extremely important. Hidden in plain sight. That's why the Bible has people coming to Jesus, and they ask Jesus, why do you speak in riddles? You're always speaking around. You don't actually tell us what you're thinking. You speak in riddles, and why do you do that? And he said, I do that because I don't want you learning the secrets. There's an encoded story there. And if you haven't done your homework and you don't understand the words and the terms and the symbols and what the whole of the New Testament is really all about, the hidden symbolism. Why did Judas go out and kiss Jesus? You got a grown man going out and kissing another man. What's that all about? Well, he went out to turn Jesus in to the authorities.
Right.
But it doesn't say that in the Bible. It says that Judas went out and kissed Jesus to betray him. Not to turn him over, not to point him out. If Jesus was the Son of God and healing the sick and raising the dead, everybody in the Roman Empire would have heard about him. So you don't have to tell us where he is. We can see him. We're in this little town where Jesus is supposedly living. It only has about 300 people in it. It's about 1 mile across. It's not like the south side of Chicago. We've got to go. We got to go looking for him and put out the cops to go looking for him. He's right over there. Yeah, right. No, he's right over there. See him sitting over in the park? Yeah, there's only 3 people over there, and he's one of them. Well, okay, you go out and kiss him and tell us which one. No, they already know which one. They already know who they're looking for. Well, then why did Judas go out and kiss Jesus? To identify him. No, he didn't identify him. You don't need to identify a famous man who raises people from the dead. You don't have to identify. Betrayed him, not identify. What does that mean? Well, we'll talk about that later, another time.
This has been fantastic. It really is. I love speaking with you. And we'll do the other shows and we'll really get into it because,
I
like I
wish
said,
you would. It'd
I
be
will.
fun.
I will. It will be fun, and it's very, very good and very important information. But before we head out, I wanted to ask you if you can just talk a little bit about your website and your research society.
Oh yeah. Well, my original website, as you know, or may not know, was jordanmaxwell.com. But I don't have that. For 4.5 years, I don't own jordanmaxwell.com. So for the past 4.5 years, I have not owned jordanmaxwell.com. It was stolen from me by my webmaster. He took the web and changed the ownership and stole the website. So all the money and the products being sold and the personal emails going to jordanmaxwell.com have not come to me. And so if you're getting any emails to buy stuff from jordanmaxwell.com, it's not from me. But if you want to contact me at my website, it's called Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW. And if you go on jordanmaxwellshow.com, that's my website. You're hearing me saying it. You'll hear me on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show. But when you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see a button or a banner that says Research Society. That Research Society is quite simply a new website that I've had to invent and to make, and I've had other people doing it for me, of course. But I've got a new website called Research Society because the Jordan Maxwell Show is a podcast. But the Research Society is my personal research website where I am downloading all of my 8 terabytes. That's 8,000 gigs. I'm downloading all the documents, pictures, subjects, all the different articles, all kinds of stuff I want to give to the world. But it's going to be a private association. But I've got quite literally thousands of gigs of stuff that I'm downloading. I'm having my webmaster download for me every day, all kinds, and I've divided it all into different categories, articles, pictures, documents, law, religion, quotes, all kinds of different stuff on my research society. So I would say if anybody wants to help me and wants to support my work, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and click on Research Society and join. So I would suggest if you really want to follow my work, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and click on Research Society and join because that's where all my work is going to be.
And it's
And I want to thank
$30
you.
for the year, right?
$30 for the year.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, for a whole year of all my stuff I'm pouring on there, hundreds and hundreds of articles, pictures, documents, because I feel I want people to be able to afford it. Most newsletters and things like that, $300 or $400 a year. Some of them are $500 a year for some website that doesn't tell you anything. I'm telling you the real stuff. If you can handle it, I'm putting it out there. So if you want to get into with my work, again, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and click on Research Society. $30 for the year.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, excellent price, and I'll make sure that we get it out there, Jordan, because the information you have, I mean, that's how I learned. You were instrumental in my awakening, in my research, in my learning.
Yeah, and I look back on my life in the past 55 years of doing what I'm doing. When I was talking about these subjects of occultism and corruption in government, the Federal Reserve and the Knights Templars and all the secret society stuff back in 1961, 62, 63, before Kennedy was assassinated. I've been talking about this stuff in Hollywood and all over the world and proselytizing these subjects till now, finally, after some 55 years, now it's everywhere on the YouTube,
Yep.
Zeitgeist, and all kinds of movies and television shows, Knights Templars, Illuminati, and all that stuff. And at 75 years old, I just sit here and think to myself, I wish the world could learn what's really going on here. I've been doing it for 55 years. It's finally caught on, but you really haven't heard. You haven't heard the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know it is because I've been living it for 55 years. So that's why I would be delighted to come back on the show on a regular basis and just download all kinds of stuff if you can handle it,
I can
because
handle
it's
it.
fun.
Yeah, it is
It's
fun.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny when you really begin to see how the world really works and what God is and what He isn't. It's not on TV. So anyway, all right. Well, let's do it again.
Yeah, I will definitely keep in contact. We will definitely do follow-up shows and have you back on the show. And again, I want to thank you so much for tonight. And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
I just wanna be left alone. I don't need you after me. I know my way back home, so please go away, let me be. And I'll drink what I want to drink. I don't need your ball and chain. And I'll think what I want to think. And I think, yeah, you're all insane. I just want to be free. I just want to be yeah, yeah. Why is it hard to see? I just want to be free. What's up with all your rules? Telling me it's time to breathe. You're nothing but a bunch of fools, and I've gotta go, yeah. It's time to leave. And I can go where I want to go. Don't stay